You're listening to Al Pastor, the show that helps you love God, love your neighbor, and eat more tacos. I'm your host, Pastor Brian. Welcome to the show. Well, hello. I want to welcome everybody back to the Al Pastor podcast. I've got in studio with me Noah. Noah, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
Good. Hey, I figured we'd introduce ourselves because I had someone tell me that they had a friend who listened and they were trying to figure out who we were. So I'm Pastor Brian. Noah, who are you?
Your son.
You are my son. How old are you, Noah?
14.
All right. Now I have said this before, but if you get this, Noah, everybody can get this. So that's why I'm really appreciative of you being on the show. Now, I did get a text message. Somebody, when we had done a longer podcast, I've had several of those. I said, hey, if you made it this long, let us know. So I had somebody that had texted in. It was Paula. So she said she really enjoys it when you're on the podcast. So what do you think about that?
Thank you, Paula.
All right. Now, she also said, don't change the intro. What do you think about that, Noah?
I don't agree. I don't agree with for that one.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to keep it the same. You know what I've decided? I'm going to evaluate at episode 300. So I think we're around, I don't know what episode this is, maybe 270 something.
Anywhere from 260 to 275.
Yeah, somewhere in there. So when I get to episode 300, I'm going to celebrate and we'll look possibly at maybe same intro, but maybe some different music. We might spice it up a little bit. I need some like cucarachas or something in the background. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, this one is going to be quick. I had told you on the last episode, we went through.
I don't trust you.
Okay. Well, we will. We're going to go actually a little bit quicker on here. So we're looking at Acts chapter 12. We're going to start in verse 5. Our goal is to walk through the first 19 verses. So Noah, I'm going to ask you, read verses 5 and 6 for us out of Acts chapter 12.
Peter was therefore kept in prison, but constant prayer was offered to God for him by the church. And when Herod was about to bring him out, that night Peter was sleeping, bound with 2 chains between 2 soldiers, and the guards before the door were keeping the prison.
All right, so here is the setup. Peter's in prison. James has already been killed. I want us to stop and appreciate the seriousness of this moment. But here's the question. I want you to notice, what is Peter doing?
In constant prayer.
Peter, what does it say? What does
kept
it
in
say?
prison.
But in verse number 6, it says that night Peter was what?
Sleeping.
Peter is asleep. Now, let me ask you this, Noah. If you were in Peter's shoes, if you are chained between 2 guards, knowing that in the morning you are going to have your head chopped off, you're going to die, do you think that you would be sleeping?
Probably not.
I'm with you. Probably not. But this tells us something.
He has his faith.
About Peter's faith. You got it, man. Proud of you for that. He had learned to trust Jesus so deeply that even in the darkest moment of his life, he could rest. Now, let me tell you this. That is real peace. Now, Noah, can you think of somebody else who went to sleep and they were in a really, really tense situation?
Jesus.
That's one. Why are you laughing?
Because on the last podcast I was on, you had said, what's the answer every church kid says?
Oh, so you're saying Jesus. Now, do you remember in the middle that there's a story about Jesus? I wasn't thinking of that one, but I'm glad you were. I know you weren't thinking of it, but there's a story of Jesus out on a boat with the disciples and a storm raged. And guess what Jesus was doing?
Sleeping.
He was sleeping. Now, do you remember about the story about Daniel in the lion's den?
Yeah.
They threw him into the lion's den, and when they went and looked, what was Daniel doing?
Chilling with the lions.
He was sleeping with the lions. So this is real biblical peace right here. It's really a beautiful picture. All right, read verses 7 and 8, okay?
Now behold, an angel of the Lord stood by him, and a light shone in the prison, and he struck Peter on the side and raised him up, saying, "Arise quickly," and his chains fell off his hands.
All right, so suddenly God intervenes. An angel shows up and the whole jail cell lights up, but Peter is still sleeping. Now the angel's got to tap him. He's got to say, "Hey, wake up, wake up." And then in that moment the chains fall off. There's no chainsaw, there's no lock breaker, there's no tools. They just fall off. It is like God is saying, "This is my rescue mission." Now, Noah, what I'm going to ask you another question. What would be going through your head if you had been sleeping and you woke up and an angel is standing there telling you to get up, get dressed, and follow him?
God is good.
Yeah, I mean, not every day that happens, right?
Because if he was that at peace to where he was sleeping and then he just wakes up to that, I think he would like immediately just be like, okay, I was hoping this would happen.
Exactly. Now, I want you to notice that Peter, he obeys, he follows instructions, and it seems like he's kind of half asleep, half awake. And here's the thing, God does the rest. Now, I want you to read verses 9 and 10 for us.
I didn't read 8.
Oh, go ahead and read 8. Sorry.
8 through 10 or 8 and 9?
Yeah, go ahead and go 8 through 10.
Then the angel said to him, "Gird yourself and tie on your sandals." And so he did. And he said to him, "Put on your garment and follow me." So he went out and followed him, and did not know that was done by the angel, and he did not know that what was done by the angel was real, but thought he was seeing a vision. When they were past the first and second guard posts, they came to the iron gate that leads to the city, which opened to them of its own accord. And they went out and went down one street, and immediately the angel departed from him.
All right. Now, this part is really, really cool. Peter is following the angel, but he doesn't think it's real. He thinks that he's dreaming. And so they pass 2 sets of guards. And then I want you to picture this in your mind. The gate opens up automatically. This is like a first century garage door opener or something, like a motion sensor detector. Now, have you ever had a dream that felt really, really real, but when you woke up, you were like, hold on, was this real or was this a dream?
I've had plenty of dreams that I thought it was real and was very disappointed when waking up.
Okay, well, this is exactly how Peter felt, except
It was real.
it was real. And when he wakes up, he finds out it's real. And guess what? Those chains are gone and he has been set free. All right, go ahead and read verse 11.
And when Peter had come to himself, he said, "Now I know for certain that the Lord has sent his angel and has delivered me from the hand of Herod and from all the expectation of the Jewish people."
All right, so this kind of gives us a sense here that like Peter has come to his own senses. He realizes that God sent the angel. God has rescued him and he gets it now. This is not a dream. This is not a drill. This is the real deal. And I want to pause on that for a second, because when something amazing happens in your life, Noah, do you recognize that it's God who is behind it? Or do you feel like, you know what, that was just a coincidence?
I would say most of the time God, but sometimes I may not immediately think it's him.
Okay, here's the principle. We have to train ourselves to see God's hand, God's fingerprints on sometimes moments that we might have a tendency to just brush off and be like, that's not a big deal, or that's coincidence. Now, Peter, in this case, he didn't miss it. He gives glory to God. Now, verse number 12, go ahead and read that.
So when he had considered this, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying.
Now, just a cool little side note here. Do you know who John, whose surname was Mark, is?
Was he the one who Jesus had him like adopt his mom kinda or
No, that's the Apostle John. That's
oh
in John 20. So this person, John, whose surname was Mark, we would call him John Mark. And we're going to read about him a little bit later on in Acts. Now, he is actually the writer of the Gospel of Mark. And Mark is written, do you know from whose perspective?
I don't know.
It's from Peter's perspective. So John Mark wrote down everything that Peter had said for him. He was a young man. You want to hear a funny story about John Mark too? He was a young man, and he wanted, it's sort of like, you know how sometimes kids want to go with the older kids or with the adults and hang out and follow them?
Yeah.
Well, on the night of the crucifixion, it was so serious. John Mark had been following them. And when Jesus got arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, one of the Roman guards saw him like hiding because he was trying to see what's going on. And when he went to run away, the guard grabbed his coat and he ended up running through those olive trees naked. This is in the gospel. Kind of crazy, huh?
Very wait, when you in the Bible?
Yeah,
Wow. I find it because God chose specifically what he wanted us to see. It's like 'cause he has a sense of humor.
he does. God is funny sometimes. Now, we'll learn a little bit more about John Mark because he's going to have his desires fulfilled. What I mean about that is he always wanted to go along. He always wanted to tag along. And so he gets to go with Barnabas and Paul on an adventure. When I say an adventure, I mean, some people might not think it's an adventure, but it was, because they're going to go hit the road preaching. And guess who Barnabas brings? He brings John Mark. Why? Because they're cousins.
Well, it's kind of like you brought me to your trip to Mexico.
Exactly. So, okay, here's the thing. In verse number 12, Peter heads straight to John Mark's mother's house. Her name is Mary. And I want us to notice that the believers are praying. Now, get this. God has already, they're inside praying. Now, we had prayer last night, so we're all praying. So let's say we came together as a church and we're praying for a miracle. And then there's a knock on the side door and we're still praying. And the answer to the prayer is standing right outside. Now go ahead and read verses 13 through 15.
And as Peter knocked at the door of the gate, a girl named Rhoda came to answer. When she recognized Peter's voice, because of her gladness, she did not open the gate, but ran in and announced that Peter stood before the gate. But they said to her, "You are beside yourself." Yet she kept insisting that it was so. So they said, "It is his angel."
All right, so Rhoda is a servant girl. She's like a worker, like an employee. So she hears Peter's voice. And she kind of freaks out a little bit with some like joy. She doesn't know what to do. And she forgets to open the door. And so she runs back inside and everybody thinks she's crazy. They're praying, but when the answer shows up, they don't believe it. Now, Noah, why do you think it's sometimes hard for us to believe that God actually answers our prayers?
I don't. Maybe because with their expectations, they had the expectation that it will come true. However, it wouldn't be as soon as they're like saying it. It's like boom. It's kind of it's not like they didn't expect it. They did not expect them to like speak into existence almost.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes we can pray, and I mean, you've got to think about this. There's no doubt they had been praying for James, right?
Yeah,
And what happened with James?
he died.
It didn't work out. So this is like they know Peter's locked up and it's not looking good. So sometimes we can have some doubt. Sometimes we might not expect an immediate result. We ask God to move, but let's not be surprised when God does. And you know what? I mean, Rhoda, she has some faith. I mean, she comes in like she's excited. So I think we all could use a little bit of some faith, just like Rhoda. Now, Go ahead and read verse 16. You think we're going to get through this?
Yeah.
I think so too. So verse number 16.
Now Peter continued knocking, and when they opened the door and saw him, they were astonished.
All right, so Peter is still knocking at the door. Now I imagine it's just me. I think he's thinking, man, you know what? Any second now they're gonna catch on. Eventually somebody opens the door and boom, everybody is amazed. Now, Noah, if you were Peter, you just escaped prison, an angel like supernaturally had the gates flung open, and now you are stuck outside waiting for people, and they're in there and you can hear them praying for you. What would you be thinking at that point?
I'm ready for some food and to just decompress.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, come on, let's get on with this already. Open the door.
I was just chained for hours.
Exactly. So this is it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of convicting, isn't it? I mean, sometimes we can get so involved, not that prayer is wrong, don't misunderstand me, but we can pray or we can get so caught up in what our expectations of what God is trying to do that we can miss the fact that the answer is standing right in front of us. All right, verse number 17.
But motioning to them with his hand to keep silent, he declared to them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison, and he said, "Go, tell these things to James and to the brethren." And he departed and went to another place.
Okay, and now Peter finally gets in. He tells them everything that happens, and here's the interesting part. He declared to them how what? What does it say?
The Lord brought him out of the prison.
Exactly. He gives God all of the glory. The Lord brought me out. And then he says, go tell James and the brothers. And then he heads out again. Now, this James isn't the one who was killed earlier.
Jesus' brother.
Exactly. This is Jesus' brother who becomes the leader.
The pastor of the church.
Exactly. In Jerusalem. Hey, man, good job. Now, here's the question. Why do you think Peter didn't stay and celebrate with everybody?
Because he had to go on the run because Herod would probably start looking for him.
Exactly. Here's the thing. He was using wisdom, wasn't he? Yeah. Just because God had delivered him and rescued him doesn't mean that he should be reckless. And so he slips away and he's going to go continue his mission somewhere else.
In the commentary, I don't know if it was which one or if any of them even said it, but didn't one of them talk about how this was him having like James take over the missionary in that area, and then like you said, he moves on to another area and to continue over there while James does it here.
It is. So you remember correctly, even though you don't remember which one. That's okay.
I think it was the life application.
Okay.
I think.
Hey, I'm actually kind of I'm impressed. I'm not just saying that, because that is actually part of the purpose, Noah, of this chapter. Is it might seem like it's I'm gonna use the word disjointed here, but it serves as a transitionary role. And so go ahead now and read verses 18 and 19.
Then, as soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers about what had become of Peter. But when Herod had searched for him and not found him, he examined the guards and commanded that they should be put to death. And he went down from Judea to Caesarea and stayed there.
All right, so I want you to kind of get into the text here. Back at the prison, it's chaos. The guards, they are freaking out. And so Herod demands an investigation, and they are looking everywhere for Peter, and he cannot be found. And then the guards are executed. Now, Noah, did you catch why that happened?
Catch why they were executed?
Mm-hmm.
Because Because the whole point of there being that many guards was to not have Peter escape, and then it was like a custom to where if they let someone escape, they would get killed.
Exactly. Exactly. And you read that in the commentary, right? One of them?
I don't think so, but this is something I've like known for a while.
Okay, so Roman law said that if you lost a prisoner, you had to pay the price. And so this whole chapter ends with Herod retreating to Caesarea. He is probably a little embarrassed. He's probably a little confused. Now, so what do we, here's how we're going to end this. What do we take away from this story that we just went over? Here's number one: God hears and he answers prayer even when we don't expect it. Here's the next thing: God can always move in impossible situations. Think about it: chains, guards, locked doors. It's not a problem for God. Here's the third thing: faith isn't just about asking. It's about recognizing, and it's about receiving. And sometimes we've got to stop praying, and there's something we need to do. In other words, we got to open the door. And finally, God's plan cannot be stopped. Think about this: Herod tried to stop God. The enemy tried, but the church kept on growing. So, Noah, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share from this story?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
I forgot if we had went over the last podcast from 1 through 4 or whatever, but with James, would they have just immediately, like as soon as they caught him, just like kill him pretty soon after he got caught, or would he have been like chained up or thrown in prison for a while, also like Peter, and then killed?
It that term "soon" is relevant. What I mean by that is Herod wouldn't have just said, "Go chop off James' head." What they would have done is they would have arrested him first. They probably would have beaten him. He would have been thrown into prison and interrogated and intimidated. Then he would have been brought before the court and the judge. In this case, it would have been Herod. The sentence would be passed, and then they would set his execution date. That's the normal process. Now, I can't tell you with certainty, Noah,
How long it would have been.
Exactly. Could have been 2 days, 3 days. It could have happened really quick. It seemed like Herod was moving quick, but anything we've learned about the Bible is sometimes one verse can be a process, right?
Yeah.
So the point is that the moment that James had been arrested, the church would have been alerted. In fact, all of Jerusalem would have known that these people who follow and preach Jesus have had one of them arrested.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts or takeaways?
Oh, no.
All right. Well, I really thank you for joining me today, and I want to thank you at home for listening. If this episode has encouraged you, please share it with a friend. Share it with those that you care about, and remember, when you pray, don't be surprised when God shows up. We'll see you next time on the Al Pastor podcast. Thank you for listening to Al Pastor with Brian Overturf. If you found value in this, please subscribe and get updates most places podcasts are available. We're right here on Anchor FM through Spotify, also on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. I hope you'll tune in for the next episode. Until then, we'll see you later.